Okay. Oh, there's a couple of people. Hey, Andres. Hola, hey, hola, Adel. Parce. Okay, so let's start now.
Sorry.
If we wanna finish quick. I know some of you, most of you, I think, at this point. Thank you for being here. And I'm Rosa Vallejo, and I'm a faculty with a joint appointment in Linguistics and Spanish and Portuguese. And I've been teaching here in this lab for a while now, thanks to Pam and all the wonderful people at the LMC that have provided me this really nice space to work with you, with some of you. And so the goal for my talk today is to, in a sense, provide you with general information about the Amazon, but I know only a portion of the Amazon. The Amazon, you will see, it's a huge area, and I'm more familiar with a portion of it. And I will try to give you some detailed information in a couple of cases, couple of groups and languages, okay, that I'm more familiar with. And show you the types of work I do with these communities. And that is one goal, inform you of this huge area that exists out there, and to, in a sense, highlight the fact that it's not just these pictures of a green area with nothing else behind maybe, but there's full of groups and languages and communities, okay? That's the first goal that I have. And then I want to take this opportunity as an invitation to you to perhaps pay more attention to issues surrounding the Amazon area in general, and perhaps from our own fields, what else can we do to focus in this area that has had little attention so far, okay, in the different fields that we may be engaged on. And of course, my field is linguistics, so I will focus more in the languages as relates to these communities, okay? So that's the idea, provide you with general and basic information. It won't be heavy in linguistics, and I will explain a couple of cool facts about these languages, but maybe not so much. So I have tons of pictures for you, so that you take a trip with me to the Amazon. And then I will try to keep it short. Let's hope for like 30 minutes or so that then we can talk more. So if you have questions, we can entertain them. Okay, that's the idea. And so when we think in the Amazon, this is the area that we refer to. Okay, so as you can see, it's a huge area in South America. And it extends through 9 countries, actually. Okay, but we usually associate it with which country? That comes to your mind. Brazil, right? That's the first thing. So, and yes, in fact, Brazil has the majority of the Amazon per se, but it is extended to other countries as well. And another important fact for you to consider is that the official languages in the majority of these countries is either Spanish or Portuguese. At least in the constitutions by law, in most of these countries, there's always a line that says this is the official country, blah, 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 right? But we all, sometimes we forget that there's also other countries, other colonies that now they're free, but recently has been lots of Europeans recently in the territory, and there's still a bunch right now. And we have English as the official language of which country would that be?
Guyana?
Guyana, exactly. How about Dutch?
Suriname?
Yes, many people don't have a sense that in South America we have a country that has Dutch as official language. And then we also have French in French Guyana, right? Guyana. And, but the fact that I want to highlight here is that these languages coexist with a huge number of other local languages, right? And I won't quiz you, how many languages, approximate numbers do we have? Because I've included it in my summary, so I gave that away, right? Did I? Okay, so they coexist with at least 300 other languages, okay? And if we try to make an effort, linguists try to organize them within linguistic 20. And why this number is important? Because this tells us how diverse, how different are languages from one another, right? We have this idea, Spanish that belongs to the Romance languages, and German and English to the Germanic languages, and so we expect they are distant from one another, right? So now imagine that these languages are organized in 20 linguistic families and dozens of isolates. What is an isolate?
An unrelated one?
Exactly. A language that we cannot link genetically to another language, meaning that they come from the same source, right? And why would that be the case? Such a huge number of isolates. Can you have some ideas, hypotheses?
Geography.
Do you want to
If this is a lot of jungle area,
Mhm.
I'm guessing that it's pretty hard to get through from one point to the other without some trails and whatnot. But I think as people, because of their distance physically and because of the vegetation, it's probably, they're isolated in them up in.
Okay, you're taking isolated as lack of contact.
Yes.
That's another sense of isolation, right? Lack of contact between groups. That's one sense of isolation, and there's, of course, now we have to entertain the idea whether geographic isolation correlates with linguistic isolation. But we were in this at this stage, we were more talking about linguistic isolation. Why would two languages that belong to two different families are in the same region? So many languages, and why is it the case that we have like dozens of those languages that we cannot classify? We cannot put it within a family. Juliana?
Thinking about cultural practices, maybe there are some ideologies involved, like purposely, maybe the people are in contact, but I don't know, maybe there are some beliefs around the languages that they cannot really incorporate, or they are, culturally, like prohibited or...
Yeah, well, you know what? You are going for explanations that are way more sophisticated than what we're talking about. Actually, the answer is much more simple and obvious. Okay? This is the first kind of response to this huge question, because having 20 languages that cannot be classified, or more than that, it's kind of a puzzle for us, for me. And the thing is, there is a huge number of languages that haven't been documented to the level of detail to either discard or provide the strong evidence to put them together in a family. So there's a lot of work to do in some of these areas, okay? And that's one of the main problems. And the other problem, it's also kind of silly, but it is important. Well, it's not silly from one perspective. Many of these languages have been named differently depending on the researcher that visited the area. So many of these have multiple names, labels, and depending on we have missionaries going there in the 20s, in the 40s, or so. Okay? And also, we may be dealing with dialects, varieties of a single language. And since we do not have enough information, we cannot say with the level of certainty required for in historical linguistics and such, to say, okay, it belongs here or there. Right? So you add up these two, and then we end up with this type of landscape that we still need more information to continue to hypothesis, stronger hypothesis, or revise our hypothesis. Okay? This is to tell you, there's work to do. If you're considering linguistics, there's work to do. Okay, so this is the Amazon in general. And I've been in a couple of these places, and it's of course amazing from my perspective, but challenging for many others. It's not easy to dedicate their time and efforts to this. And here we have another person that works in Amazonia. It's Andres Abogal. Tell us a little bit, very quick, what do you do and where were you recently?
Hi. So I've done some work with the Wayu language, which is Northern Colombian language, northern Venezuelan language.
In the borders with Venezuela, over here.
But we know that they originated from the Amazon, and they went up farther north.
Migrated.
But a lot of similar languages are still spoken in the Amazon border of Venezuela, Colombia area.
Mhm. And this language belongs to a family, right?
The
Which
family is called Arawak.
Arawak. And Arawak is extended throughout the Amazon. It has migrated in different directions, and you have different languages kind of dispersed, but they're not concentrated in a particular region. Like we can say, okay, Arawak languages are here, Tupian languages are here, Macro-J are here. We kind of have some clusters, but not clear. There's lots of migration. All right, so somebody else has been in the Amazon, in one of these areas, one of these points here? No? One. Okay. So now I'm gonna close, do a kind of close up into Peru. Okay? I am from Peru, and my work is mostly done in Peru. This, the colorful area here represents the Amazon within Peru. Okay? And this is the most diverse area in terms of languages and in terms of indigenous groups. Do you want to sit here, maybe? And but there's another major family that goes, the linguistic family, and the population that goes throughout here all the way and expands. Which one would that be? A hint? This is the Andes. Quechua. Okay? Quechua is spoken, depending on how do you count them, between 7 and 10 million people throughout. And we have another person here that works with Quechua.
Yes.
Juliana, do you want to say?
Yes, I'm focusing on the Quechua from the southern part of Peru, basically the region of Cusco. Initially I thought I would focus on Cusco, but my participant happened to be from Apurímac also, another area bordering Cusco. And I'm focusing on ideology.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that her study is exploring, which is pretty cool, is the multilingualism in the Cusco city per se. Because what we think, like by default, if we're going to find speakers of any language, indigenous language, in Cusco is what? Spanish and Quechua, right? And it turns out that she's documented a bunch of other groups too, right? How many have you documented in the Cusco city itself?
Well, again, in the qualitative part, where I have found there are 3 varieties. So we have the Cusco Collao Quechua in Cusco, and then some participants have the Quechua Chanca from Apurímac, bordering Ayacucho, and then they have their own, variety. They call it the Quechua Pulimeño in the south. Yeah. And then also in the bilingualism, of course, we have the bilingual Spanish, as mentioned by Escobar, which is the Spanish but with some syntactical and phonological features from the Quechua into the Spanish. But recently I just learned about the bilingual Quechua, I guess. So it's the Quechua, but with some components of the Spanish.
And one thing that surprised me, I'm in her committee, doctoral committee, right? So I'm familiar with your research. And one thing that you found is that, because she's looking at the university population, right, in the city of Cusco, that there are many students that come from indigenous Amazonian groups too, right?
Yes.
That was interesting to me, because we all usually think of Spanish and Quechua, and then you find several others, and usually nobody pays attention to that type of population. Right? Okay, so let's move on. So what do we know about Peru in terms of languages? So Peru has officially, meaning what the government says, 47 indigenous languages, 4 in the Andean region, 43 in the Amazon alone, and we have also a Peruvian Sign Language, okay, that now is having a little bit more presence and attention. There's a lot of, several efforts right now going on by the Ministry of Education, by the Ministry of Culture, trying to do something around these languages and around these groups, involving them more and more. Let's see how far they can go. So, but we have to recognize that there's at least in the last 5 years, perhaps 10 if we're generous, they've been trying to do some things. Of course, whether we agree with what they're doing is a different issue, but they're trying to. Okay? And so, this is the region that I have been working on since '97. That means like 20 years. 20 years.
You're not that old.
Thank you. Extra credit for you. Okay. Okay, so this is the region, right, Loreto, and it's highly diverse. And I've been working with a few groups there. When I arrived there in '97, I was invited and hired by the National Indigenous Organization to work as a linguist and instructor of a program that they have to train bilingual teachers. And so they were my bosses, and they decided what we were expected to do, which was a great experience, looking at this whole issues from a different perspective. In a sense, trying to look at these issues from their lenses, from their perspective, as much as possible. And one of the things that we may want to highlight is, although it's extremely diverse, in terms of numbers, the speakers of these several languages only make up 3% of the whole population, at least until the last census. So it's only 3% of the population that speaks all this number of languages. Okay, that is again data from 2007. We just have a census, but we don't know yet the results. Okay, and so there's these numbers that I got from the INEI, is the official institution that does the census for us. And they asked this question first in 2005, in which language did you learn to speak? There's no direct questions of what language do you speak, are you bilingual, blah, blah, blah. That was a question from which we could infer some information. So when they asked this question in 2005, this was the answer. In Loreto, only Loreto, this region that has lots of colors, right? Lots of languages. 91% declare Spanish. And now you see where I'm going with this. Right? Only 8% say a native local language, an indigenous language. And 0.3 others, and there we have an important Nikkei community, Tucson community, immigrants from China and Japan. We have this population in the jungle. Okay? Okay, if you were kind of alarmed with these numbers in 2004, look at what we found in 2009. Oh. Whether our inferences are correct, whether this actually represents what is going on, is a different issue. But this is self-reported information. Meaning, this is what they say they're doing. This is their perspective. Okay? That's very important information in terms of planning. Okay? And so this is just to tell you that things are usually the languages that are dominated are shifting away, are being pushed away by the dominant language, and that we find that over and over and over in several areas, right? And because of this, there have been a few, not many as we would like, but a few responses from local indigenous groups, organizations, and communities themselves, trying to do something so that they can preserve the languages. Because languages in this area is tied to many other issues, not only because I want to preserve my language and my language is beautiful. Yeah, that too. But the most important point in this region is because languages is closely tied to basic rights, to land, for instance, okay? To be part of a community. Language is still tied up to now to whether you belong or not to a community and whether you have collective rights that the government has that it should respect, okay? And they were at that point fighting, at least the last, forever, from what I can remember, fighting oil companies, lodging companies, okay? And they, of course, want to have their territory, at least some portions of it, prevented from exploitation, okay? And that's in the middle, in this context is when they started to think about language as a component, as a crucial component on these movements, okay? So you have a question, sorry? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was wondering, is this share of self-report in rural areas or like more urban
Overall,
areas?
the whole area. The
Ah,
whole
okay.
area.
Okay.
If we just look at the main, in Iquitos, in this region Loreto, there's only one city, big city, it's Iquitos.
Okay.
And Iquitos has like 400,000 people only. And there, just the population that speak other languages than Spanish is 1%.
Okay.
It's worse. So that's in the urban area.
Mhm.
This compares rural and urban. Okay? So, I don't remember in which order I have my slides, sorry. So, my work has been mostly with the Cocama-Cocamerias and the Sequoias. And this is a good example of what I was saying, the multiple names that a community have. When I started working with the Cocama-Cocamerias, when I was hired in 1987, the official name was Cocama with C, following the spelling in Spanish, right? And later on, they moved to Cocama with K, because they go, why should we go with the messy spelling of Spanish? They think Spanish spelling is messy, they haven't tried French or English, I think. And so, they do Cocama. And then, so if you see some of my publications from the first period, I have Co with C, with O, right? Cocama. And then I move on to Cocama with K. And that's the title of my dissertation in 2010, is with K, right? And then they try to implement another spelling that follows their own alphabets, that only incorporates the symbols that they need, that they have in the languages. And they do not have an O. For the Cocamas, there's not a vowel O that needs to be represented with a letter. And so they say, okay, then let's get rid of O. Let's Cocama. And it ended up, and now, we as people that accompany this process, we are outsiders to this process. We accompany, we provide support, we provide resources, but they make the decisions, and we have to go along with it. So if you see my publication, they go like there's 3 stages, different spellings. And at the north are the Sequoias. They live right in the border with Colombia and Ecuador, right in that area. Okay, so I've been working with those 2, and I will I've been collaborating with other groups too, but mostly with these 2, and I want to show you some of the things that they have been doing, and in some of these efforts that I've been supporting them. Okay, that's the idea. Okay, what are the Cocama-Cocamerias? Who are they? They are about 20,000 total. Again, there's not hard numbers; these are just estimates. And the numbers vary between 15,000 all the way to 40,000, but 20 is a safe number. And they live in about 120 villages. That means they are spread throughout a very large region. And that also has consequences for language issues, among other things, right? They are dispersed. And the main activities, fishing, hunting, rotative agriculture. Do you know what rotative agriculture is? Yeah, that's one way they rotate. What else?
Slash and burn.
Yes. And they take one piece of land, they prepare it, burn and everything, and plant the mandioca and bananas and beans, right? They use it for a couple of years, few years, they know the calendar, and then the soil is no longer good, and they have to switch, move to another place, right? That's, okay? And they're hunting and fishing, they rely on fish for protein. They eat fish every day, and well, you will see some more details on this, okay? The Cocamas are like, I will use Cocama for shorten this up, okay? Okay, maybe it's important to know. Cocama is one dialect, Cocamilla is another dialect. They depend on rivers, in which rivers they are located, where they live. And we use both together to refer to the language overall. Okay, Cocama, Cocamilla. That's what this is, okay? But to make things easier, we'll just use Cocama. This is one of the Tupian groups that migrated from Brazil, right? Before the Europeans arrived. That's all the migration, before the Europeans arrived in the Amazon. And there's another close group, like close cousins, the Omaguas. This is another Tupian group. They came together and were located close to each other, okay? And these were, particularly the Omaguas, was a huge group that lived all along the lower Amazon River. This was one of the most powerful populations. And the Cocamas and the Omaguas were one of the first groups that were contacted by Europeans because they lived close to the big rivers that were navigated by the travelers, okay? And this means is that they have early contact with foreigners and with other languages, particularly Spanish and Portuguese, okay? And the other thing that you may want to know is that the Omagua, by now, the language is almost wiped out. Last year, there were 3 speakers. One just died. We have left with 2. We're left with 2. This is how it went for the Omaguas. And at this point, we estimate that only 5% of the Cocamas speak their heritage language. Okay? And the speakers, the ones that are competent and fluent and use it still for communicative purposes, are older than 55. My speakers are all older than 60. The ones that I was able to interview.
So are any of the younger generations trying to?
Oh yes, that's what I'm going next.
Oh.
The efforts to provide or maintain this, right? Preserve the language. Okay? But this is what it is today, and this is what we have to basically work with. And so by UNESCO standards, I don't know if you're familiar with the work that UNESCO has in place. There's certain standards to categorize languages in a scale of 6 to say whether it's how urgent is the situation, right? This is a highly endangered language classified by UNESCO. UNESCO combines parameters as the absolute number of speakers, absolute number of the population, and whether there is documentation of the language, meaning raw primary data, whether there is resources created by the government or linguists, whatever efforts there are, whether there are public policies in place to do something about it. And so combining all these, there are 6 parameters, they declare this one of these, right? That's how it goes. All right, and so this is where they are located within Peru. Again, this is another map that places the Cocamas in this area. Again, they are extended a little bit more. The green portion here in the map on the right represents the Pacaya-Samiria National Reserve. And I want to point this out for you because this area, it's huge, right? 5 million hectares, right? I don't know which one makes more sense for you, whether 10,000, I put them both to give you a sense. This is the biggest national reserve in South America. I think it's the second in South America, the biggest in Peru, right? And wonderful number of resources, flora and fauna, all of that. Really nice work they're doing. What happens is that in 1982, when they declared this national reserve, is in the Cocama territory. So what happens? They, at least 56 to 60 communities, villages, ended up kind of trapped within the national reserve. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine what kinds of things can happen if this happens to you, suddenly your area is declared national park? You know, the legislation that comes with that, the limitations, the restrictions, all of that comes with. From our perspective, yes, government, do that, more national parks. Because to some extent, we believe that maybe there's too much going on there in terms of population, in terms of people. Okay? What?
If the population was not considered at the time of the National Reserve Law, I assume that they were prohibited, for example, to hunt. Yeah.
Well, they were considered to some extent, they were part of the discussion, and in the end, the resources were taken away anyways from outsiders. And they thought this, maybe the government can help us protect our resources, right? So they did participate to some extent in this discussion and in the decision, and it's still good, mostly good, let's say. There's some negatives in there, but mostly good, and they have different areas based on how much resources you can explore and exploit, okay? And there's lots of restrictions, for instance, lots of species of types of fish, our animals that cannot be hunted, and they have, these years of restrictions, like for this species, 10 years, things like that, and they say, oh, what? That's basically how they ended up, and they have to change a lot of their, behavior and patterns of living because of these restrictions, right? Mm-hmm.
But I don't know if I could compare it with what happened in the south in the reserve called Manu, also the national reserve. So there were Ashaninka, Machigenga, Piro, Conibo communities that experienced the same. And what is happening is, it became a big tourist destination.
Yeah, it is.
And
It's beautiful.
exactly, and some of the communities, see it, I guess, welcome, but also there have been, for some of them, they consider it like symbolic violence. Suddenly there are other frictions within the
There are things that emerged and were unexpected. And also here didn't stop actually the presence of oil companies in particular, and there have been lots of oil spills close to the national reserve. National park is a different type of legislation. And there have been oil spills here, and a couple of here, and then some here. And all these are connected, right? So this area and this area here is now contamination going on there. The level of, I believe it's uranium, I don't remember which chemical exactly, have been found in the blood of the population. So it's no, they haven't been basically saved because of the declared national reserve. Maybe things could have been worse, we don't know, but this has its complications because it's a set of views that kind of collapse with a different set of views from the local populations. Okay? So just keep that in mind. And I'm not a specialist in these issues anyways. And what I want to show you, I want to show you a couple of pictures so that you can get a sense of how the Kokamas live. These are some houses, and you see the structure of the house kind of reveals that they need a space within, underneath the houses, because most of these communities are flooded by water at least 5 to 6 months a year, and they have to live out of the water. And I have to run a little bit more, I think. Yes. And this is a canoe, right? This is how they move from one place to another. And this is pretty much how you do. And that's the hardest things to learn when you go to live with the, I remember the first time around, I did learn eventually, but it took me some time. And having to rely all the time in a 3 or 4 year old girl that would have to move me from one place to another. That was kind of interesting, And this is soccer, of course it's very important. And almost every community has a soccer field in the middle and the houses around. That's usually how these communities are structured. And this is just a good afternoon, right? The border of the river. This is the Marañón River. Kids jumping and having fun. And so what we did, one of the things we did within this framework, within these issues that I was telling you about the language dying, going away, and only the elders speaking the language. So there's an effort among linguists, among a group of linguists. I mean, this is one way of working with these communities, is language documentation. For this, we come up with projects to collaborate with particularly elders or speakers of the language that want to work with you and want to document the language, want to create resources that can be archived and taken care of, and they, of course, used by the communities in some by practical ways, applying it to schools and things like that. So we started doing this in 2003, and then 4, we continue all the way to 2012. So these are some of the trips that we have. These are 2 of my main collaborators. Victor Yuyeri Machota, in case you all want to know a little bit more about him, he's a great guy, leader and such, and he's a shaman. It's very important, I want to look up. And then Rosa Mies Murayari, she's an awesome, I would say, community linguist at this point. She was being my co-author of a dictionary. We produced together a dictionary. And I'll show you what, we talk more about the dictionary, because it's part of the documentation project. And we traveled by rivers for at least, I don't remember, like 2 months, once, like 2 months traveling, and then a month each time that I was in the gym. Okay? So these are the communities that we, I stopped in 2008, but they're more all the way to 2012. The communities that we traveled in these rivers to document the language, to make interviews, and we did interview 42 speakers of the language. That seems like, only 42 all these years. We have to kind of chase speakers. Imagine we're going to a community and they say, oh, my grandma speaks the language, but today she went to visit my cousin. It's in the river. Maybe one day it won't. Okay, we go there. We want to find this grandma. And they said, no, she just went to another. That was our life process. Yeah. So we had all kinds of recordings. We made all kinds of recordings, video mostly, and some audio too. And some of them are mostly framed as we were trained in documentary linguistics, trying to make sure that we take care of quality first, quality of the sound. That is very important in documentary linguistics. And we have the correct microphone, we have the correct setting, and hopefully the correct lighting and such, right? And so for that to happen, you have to tell your speakers, sit, please, at least for half an hour, at least for 40 minutes, right? And I have tons of videos in which they did exactly the opposite. But yeah, I do have good microphone, good quality for some types of studies. We need excellent quality for phonetics, for instance. If you know acoustic phonetics, we need to have a good quality. But then I had other set of recordings in which this is my favorites actually, when they're doing something. They're engaged in something. They're not paying attention to language. They could care less that I'm there with the camera. Right? They're just engaged and speaking to each other. And the interviews were conducted by one of my collaborators, one of the speakers, fluent speaker. Because if they were talking to me, of course they would start talking like a child, right? Do you understand? Kind of like that, but in program. We don't want that either. We want the most natural language possible. So this is one they are collecting camu camu, it's called. It's a fruit, high in vitamin C, that it's very popular, and there's a market for that now in the area. And I hope you can hear some. I didn't try it. I hope this works. Do you hear it? There's nothing? Here? Or here? Maybe mine.
I'm not hearing because I've heard that.
Maybe mine. We didn't do that. Just for you to hear a little. Down. This is good, right? This is the one supposed to be? Press down, press.
Yeah,
It's on.
it's pressed on.
Yeah, it is on. Okay, let's try again. And here, it's the thing. So let's do one more time. Because I have another 5 minutes.
Really low.
Where's the volume? Can you hear some? Well, you get the idea of the sounds, and later I will show you another one. And I think I have to go a little bit faster now, because if we want to finish on time. Okay, so one of the things that we did with this community is, as I said, we created this dictionary with Rosa Mías. We co-authored this dictionary, and what am I doing? And this other thing we did, this is what's the teaching book for Kukama for first and second grade kids. And we did a couple of other reading books too. And I want to mention a couple of things about the dictionary, because that was an amazing experience for me. Took, honestly, 12 years to finish. Okay? This is a long time project. Okay, so we did workshops to collect the words. using guides produced by, biologists and such. And here we are with workshops with women and men in different types of workshops, trying to collect lexical items and then developing these lexical items into dictionary entries, right? There's a technique, there's software, all kinds of stuff that we can use now. And here I am, we're collecting data. Maybe an anecdote that it's interesting here is that we divided up like semantic fields, right? Areas that we want to collect. We said the guy, you do house, how do you build a house? Part of the house. And then canoe, right? Instruments and work with me. And the other, my assistant, this is a student here. She's a student of linguistics in Lima. Catherine, she already finished. And she's doing types of plants, types of palm trees in this session with these ladies. And then he's doing the canoe, the house with men. And I started to do food, because that's an area that I didn't have. Food and all types of foods you have, ingredients and such. And of course I failed miserably. Because I said, oh, but let's talk about that soup. Remember that soup? Tell me, how do you make this soup? And they would say, the soup, like looking at me like, how in the world can you not make even a soup? I said, okay, to make this soup, my husband goes to the jungle, get a monkey, and kills the monkey, brings it and clean it, and then put it in the pot. There you have your soup. Pretty much every type of exchange about food and food processing went like that. So I ended up collecting birds or something after like 2 attempts, but I couldn't. Because why is it, what does it tell you? Once you learn this, that you can, in the first place you cannot keep pushing, but it's not relevant. Recipes, it's not something relevant for them. What is more relevant is how do you get the meat to make this food. That's crucial, okay? How to make a soup? Of course, you can't just put water and salt and do that. Okay, so anyways, so this is one of the workshops I did with elders. I want you to see the elders, and I have workshops in different communities with elders, right? To work on these issues. And look at this. We collected about 120 names of birds. And throughout the years, I've collected stories, right, where these words show up first in Okama. And this is how I gloss it, like the analysis says, bird, bird, bird. And they ended up with like 100 words, bird, with names in Okama. And now how am I going to sort them out, right? That's where you need a close collaboration with the community members. And that's why we find these guides, and we have this amazing artist that draw this for a guide, and I talked to him saying, how about if I use your drawings in the dictionary that we want to publish? And he says, it's going to be free for the communities? I said, yes, it's going to be free. Go for it. And I used like 250 drawings are included in the dictionary. That was beautiful. And that was the only way that we could get, do this. Look at this. The fish. They look pictured, right? They're not. They're drawings. And so that's the way we collected. Basically, we were able to match the names with the fish and such. And I have like this for palm trees, for monkeys. We have like perhaps 30 words for monkeys. Oh, beautiful. Okay, so. And on top of that, for cultural items, this is my co-author, Rosa Mías. Look at her drawings. I cannot draw even my hand. And she was amazing at drawing. Look at that. These are all certain types of pots, right? They have their own name. And look at this. Isn't that amazing? And I told her, you know that the artists, they sign the drawing, they sign the, the product. And they said, okay. And she signed it. And it's with, the dictionary has this with its signature, with her signature, as it should be. This is the names for the different pieces that go in the house, right? And all these words mean cut.
Cut.
Cut, cutting, cut. And she was tired and sick of explaining me what each of these mean. I said, okay, tell me again, but this and that. So one thing you might want to know is that the drawing on the left top, it's sugar cane. And here, this one in the right is a papaya, and the one in the middle is a banana. So this was, now I understood what's going on. The word for cutting, depends on the type of item that you're cutting, the outcome of the cutting, the type of piece of the cutting, the texture of the piece, whether it's hard, whether it's soft, right? And whether you have multiple things or just cut it like a pineapple in two, it's a different thing. Okay, and so on and so forth. And I was, these paintings, these drawings made a huge difference. So she did it, and later in the dictionary. And because of this, I got in love with these drawings and such. So we created several videos that are available in YouTube. And she explaining these facts and the names of the birds, the names of the fish, and she created her own categories, small birds, big birds, and then for fish, white fish, no white fish, whatever is relevant. And this video that has a head, she explains the different parts of the head, but the most important thing is that she explains one feature that is extremely cool about Kokama among everything else. That there is a difference in the way that male speakers and female speakers speak. Okay? So gender in this language is not about what you're talking about. It's not about the chair, the table that you're talking about. It is about who is speaking. Okay? And in this video she explains. And women would ask this question this way. And men would ask the question this way. Right? This is called indexation of gender. Gender indexicality. Anyway, so let's move on. And there are many other efforts, as I said, in the schools. They are trying to teach the language to small kids, and we're doing workshops with these teachers to try to, make them reflect on the structure of the language, and they would help the teaching of the language, and so on and so forth. And we also had some meetings with other communities, with other efforts in the picture on the left is with people working in the radio. They have radio programs, and health campaigns, and educational campaigns, all kinds of, now they have a 24-hour radio in Kokama, in one specific location. The one in the right, this picture, is in a meeting with the Ministry of Education, the Culture here, trying to agree all these programs, all these institutions, trying to agree on a single alphabet, because each of us were using different orthographies, and this created some tension. Since nobody cared, we designed a very technical alphabet, and the institution that I was affiliated with, and we were using this for 20 years. But then this small effort didn't have, let's say, a linguist, or didn't have the more technical study of the language. They were making the effort, right? Which is okay. But at that point, they say, okay, we need to come together. And the discussion is still going on, because that's not an easy issue. Okay, so this is what I have, I believe, for the Kokamas. And I'm not sure if I have time to do it. Maybe one thing to do is stop here, because I have a few other slides for the sequoias. Maybe I'll stop here, and then let's just, I'll take your questions, because otherwise it will go for too long. Is that okay? Well, what I can do is I can show you the slides that I have. Oh, the Kokamas have been in the news. And lots of attention now, which is excellent. Things have happened, like quite a things in the last 10 years. Look at this, there have been reports on them. There have been musical videos made by kids and elders. They've been in the news, as I said, in several places. And then they've been invited to the Smithsonian Folk Festival here in the US. A delegation came and taught the language. So there are things going on. And again, it's because they started to do something. And one thing that I want to emphasize here is that linguists cannot save languages. We do not. We cannot. Okay? It are the communities themselves if they want to start doing things. And if they ask us for our support, in my view, we have the obligation to support these efforts. But we cannot start these movements if they don't do themselves. We are here to support, but we cannot intervene if they are not ready to go to do this. Okay? All right. So I will stop here. Thank you. Okay. Do you have questions, Alice?
How did you get there? How did you, when you left, where did you leave from the United States, and where did you?
Oh, you want my trip?
Yes. Did you have to take the boat to these little
Then I need to make another presentation only about my trees that I said to go there. Let's go to the map. And so here, what you do first is, let's take as a reference point, Lima. Lima is here.
Oh, okay, so you,
This is the capital city.
right.
There's no way to go to this region, to Iquitos, the main city in the Amazon, by roads. There's no roads. It's an isolated region. There's a way to go by rivers. You have to go this way. It's called the Ucayali, and then navigate the Ucayali River all the way up, and it will take you up the river. This is down the river, although it's not. This is 5 days and 7 days. 7 days up the river, 5 days down. It depends on which direction you're going. And the other way, which is the way that I go, is I fly to Iquitos. Okay, there's regular flights, at least 3-4 flights daily from Lima, because it's a very busy region, lots of tourists there. And from there, from Iquitos is up there, to go to the Cocama area, I have to take a boat. And the trip is between 24 hours that's the closest community, to 4 or 5 days. That's to the Cocama area. To the Sequoias is a different story. From Iquitos, if you want to take a boat, the Sequoias are up there, right? It's 21 days by boat. Because you have to go first all the way here to the border with Brazil, Colombia, navigate this river, it's called the Putumayo, and go through immigration Brazil, immigration Colombia, and then back to the Peruvian territory. Because the river goes like that, right? The river goes from here where we are in this territory. And then, but what I do is another way to go from Iquitos. I fly to where that arrow is. It's called El Estrecho. The only way to fly is with the Peruvian National Force, Air Force, Peruvian Air Force. Oh, wow. And they have these small charters, charter planes, very small, and they usually have one every 2 days or so. So as soon as they get to Iquitos, they have to go and say, please put me in a waiting list, and then wait and pray and wait, and they say, okay, we have one seat today. And I run and get it. And then I go there, and from there I navigate all the way up, like 10 hours by boat. But that's the closest.
Are these boats like taxis? I mean, they run regularly and because there's no road.
Some areas do have, yeah, so in some areas you have that, in some areas no. There are different, okay, we need a presentation only on means of transportation.
Sorry.
There's lanchas, it's called, I don't even know how to translate lanchas. Lanchas are huge,
Motorized.
Motorized.
that they can take 600 people. They're 3 layers. And you go there, they take, of course, you go with the cows, with the pigs, and with the banana, and everything else, because they're huge, and they take longer than the boats. But they're cheaper, that's usually how the local population travels. And those are called lanchas, and they only go through the main rivers, big rivers.
Yeah.
But then you have populations in small rivers too, and those are navigated by small boats, right?
Wow.
So you have to consider, when you're doing fieldwork in this area, you have to consider all of them. And have this deviation in terms of time to get there, time to get out. Okay.
Are there kiosks doing Pacaya-Samiria rap?
Yes, did you see that?
Cool.
There's a cool video, the kids doing with their grandpas. It's very good, that been a success. And this video was broadcasted in Lima. That was, I mean, they said we made it. And they were a success.
Is it on YouTube?
It is in YouTube.
Okay.
I'll
find it.
In your journey about collecting, documenting these vocabulary words, I guess, or different expressions, you mentioned the example of flora, fauna, and then the verbs, right, to cat. Did you learn, or did they express it?
I learned something.
Ways of like dialoguing with the river. When I was a ranger in the South Jungle, they have different ways to name, their dialogue with the river.
Oh.
I want it just, because sometimes I feel like we come with this, flora, fauna, but then they have this other relation, I guess. I don't know. I just wonder about that with the river. Because that impressed me down south.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. What you're saying is what type of items did you collect beyond flora and fauna and cultural items, right?
Or
Oh,
some
we
that you
have
found it very
all kinds
surprising.
of, we call it in Spanish, at least for that, formas de discurso. Different ways in which they interact with whether they are human beings or non-human beings. There's a really nice way of communicating with every item. It's supposed to have its owner, its mother. Like the mother of this plant is that. The mother of the copoasu is that. So you have to have permission from them in order to cut them, to collect them. That's the first thing that you have to learn. And there's ways of formulaic expressions to communicate with them. That's one thing. And the other thing that, of course, I couldn't avoid, I mean, that was the one of the most important things of having a shaman with me is that he is knowledgeable in Icaros. Icaros are particular songs. Songs to ask for permission. There are curative songs for curing, and curing in the more wide sense. Curing, you can cure somebody because I'm lazy. Oh, I'm so lazy, being lazy. Okay, I'll cure you. And they will cure you with something, with singing, with some vegetables, and then you get more energy. I may need it now. Things like that, right? And then you cure because you feel sick. It's more about the social being, the good, ways of living. And that's what the shaman has, and they have a bunch of types of singing. That's called Ikan. Okay?
Fascinating.
All right, thank you so much for coming. So who's going with to the Amazon with
No sé si te animaron. Yo voy a comer 20 veces.